think it was really true this year as we resonated into a virtual space. So welcome to our annual meeting. For those that have not been to FallFest before, this is an annual meeting that myself and our board president, Nancy Messina, will take you through a journey. The journey is who NEHA is, what have we accomplished during the 2020. We will then go through opportunities, challenges, and a pretty thorough financial overview of the revenue that comes in, our expenses, membership, etc. I encourage you to use the chat. Sarah, if there's questions in the chat, if you can read them at the end, we'll save all questions to the very end, and then we can ask them. So with that said, I'm going to share my screen. And again, welcome everyone here. All right. So an array of photos is going to start us off. These are photos from last year's FallFest, and it features many of you, and photos really are at the heartbeat of who we are as a community. So who we are is a great segue. Love this little picture, Lauren, of Mateo here. Founded in as a charitable 501c3, November 1st, 1957. So over 6 decades ago, NEHA was founded around a kitchen table by volunteers, just like many of you, with an idea to start an organization to serve the bleeding disorder community of New England. We are a proud chapter of the National Hemophilia Foundation and a member org, which really is semantics, a chapter member organization of the Hemophilia Federation of America. We currently have 3 full-time staff, and I'll have them wave. Sarah, who came on board this year, who has really jumped in during the pandemic. We have Gabby. So Sarah is our program director. Gabby, our wave, is our development manager. Then we have myself as the executive director, Rich Pizzillo, and then we have Brandon, who is a shared position. This has never been done before with the New York City Hemophilia chapter. And Brandon, you have done an incredible job with the communication of all things. So thank you for what you do. And then Jill, our operation manager, and man, these boxes, Jill and her sisters have worked so hard to get all these boxes out for Family Camp, Consumer Med, Women's Retreat, and FallFest here. Our board of directors, for those that were on the Meet the Board webinar on Wednesday, you heard, and you also will see Nancy Messina, our board president, at the end, but there are currently 9 board of directors. So what is the New England landscape? It's always funny in other parts of the country. They're like, New England, is that 4 states? Is Rhode Island part of Long Island? No, I mean, we all know it's 6 states. We have Northern New England and we have Southern New England. In New England, there are 9 federally funded hemophilia treatment centers. So most states have 1, Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, Rhode Island. Connecticut and Mass have more than 1. But we also work really closely with hospitals, and many of you get seen at Tufts and others. Those are not federally funded, but they are operating as a hemophilia treatment center. The Connecticut Hemophilia Society was formed in 2010, and the Hemophilia Alliance of Maine was formed in 2011. We work really closely with these organizations, as NEHA also serves those that live in Maine and Connecticut. And I'll get into that a little bit later. So the year in review, I just want to say thank you again, because in a virtual space with kids in school and all of you, when we look at these numbers and compare them, they're really incredible, and it speaks to our Wicked Strong family that you're still believing. And you know, the core of our mission is education, support, and advocacy, and this is what it comes down to. These are numbers, I won't go through them, but you can see the numbers of Family Camp to Consumer Med to the Women's Retreat, the Hispanic Heritage Month, and FallFest. So these are people that are registered for these events, including kids. Our industry partners are not reflected in these numbers here. Our VWD retreat is coming up on November 14th, which features Caitlin Moncrief from the Rhode Island the Rhode Island Hemostasis and Thrombosis Center, and Dr. Connell from Brigham and Women's. And then we have the joint holiday party upcoming. These are what we call marquee events. So the big, large events that really happen. We have a multitude, which I'll get into for the webinar Wednesdays. We've done over 25 of them every Wednesday, either at 7 or 8 o'clock since April. And then we have chats, mom chats, dad chats, blood brother chats. If you're a leader of these chats, thank you so much for helping us. So in total, there's been over 300 individuals that have participated in these virtual chats this year. I also want to just in person, Consumer Med and FallFest will always rotate in the two regions. So Consumer Med will either be in Southern New England, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Mass, and FallFest will be in Northern New England, Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont. So there's a method to the madness here of giving an opportunity for our big two largest events to rotate through. We've also worked really hard based on a 2016 needs assessment to rotate things like the couples retreat, the women's retreat. The women's retreat was in Connecticut last year and it was supposed to be this year. Consumer Med was in Maine, et cetera. The Fall Fest was supposed to be in Vermont. So we try really hard to give an opportunity to everyone in New England so that you're not driving 4 or 5 hours to these events. So things are planned and we are keeping in mind where everyone lives. So collaborations and services. The New England Bleeding Disorder Advocacy Coalition, which I'll get into in a little bit, otherwise called as NEBDAC, provides a scholarship each year for Washington Days. So this is pre-pandemic. We had 43 individuals from around New England that attended Washington Days. Thank you to a scholarship for NEBDAC. We also collaborate with the Hemophilia Alliance of Maine for our 4th annual winter camp. And Tracy, thank you for your leadership. You and your family work so tirelessly to get so many things on the ice. We don't have ice in Southern New England. You can't even walk on ice in Rhode Island. So Maine, it's totally a different realm up there in the winter. Webinar Wednesdays, as I mentioned, over 27 of them. Our family chat, 16. We had Sunday morning fitness classes featuring Jeff LeBlanc, where if you saw on Facebook, we're going to be launching a new joint health initiative where we filmed Jeff with a series of working through bleeds. So we did these fitness classes. We had a New York City and NEHA Friday night game night that will start up again once we get into the colder months. And then we did a fitness challenge, which many of you participated in, where you wore, I still have it on, a fitness tracker and you competed against each other. This is a photo from our family camp night here. So by the numbers, just going through this, one of our favorite photos of the Bruno family with their summer camp campfire. It's like a magazine cover for Homesick Candles here. I won't go through this, but this is just by the numbers: 280 camp registrants, 94 kids, Goose Chase, which has been working. I love to see the over 2,000 missions. So missions are challenges that are completed, the 4 live programs, and of course, this one right here of a camper who learned to self-infuse. And this was a quote. He was so nervous, and through virtual camp is different. It still gave him the push he needed to try, which goes back to this Geneva point behind me that camp is in our heart and can be accomplished virtually. Our virtual consumer medical symposium, we can't thank these physicians: Dr. Parnes from Brigham and Women's, Dr. Rosenfeld from Tufts, Jordan Shavit, who's on MASAC, the Medical and Science, the Medical Advisory Science Council with NHF, and Maria. These are all found on our website. So we recorded all of these sessions about VWD, other rare bleeding disorders, and hemophilia. They are not presenting during this event, but what we're gonna do is we're gonna send you a link. If you have questions specific about medical treatments or other things, we're going to send them to a provider. They're going to record a video and we're going to share that. Since Consumer Med was only a couple of months ago, is the way that we're going to follow through if you have medical specific questions. This is what our exhibit hall looks a little bit like this time as well. But 150 consumers, 11 healthcare providers, 47 industry partners, and you can see these stats here, which were, thank you for, again, believing in this, the 844 missions on Goose Chase, et cetera. So thank you guys for believing in the Consumer Med. This is a graphic that we created with a company called Ink Factory. It was all the notes from Consumer Med. So you can start here, and if you haven't seen this before, it will be in an upcoming newsletter. But it talks about cautiously optimistic about new treatments, all the way down to it's normal to feel anxious. No two patients are the same in clinical trials. We really tried to cover the entire spectrum of where we are. So the support and updates. So thanks to your efforts from last year walk, our board of directors approved a $25,000 contribution to the Judith Graham Poole Postdoctoral Research Fellowship. This was the single highest contribution from a chapter outside of Georgia, which has an endowment to support research. So this is where a lot of basic research happens, and then it goes into what you now see of looking at things like gene therapy or other treatments that maybe you are on, or maybe your children are, et cetera. This year alone, we have helped 42 families, totaling over $20,000 in support. We also have launched these Wicked Strong Family masks. My little buddy Logan over here putting the Wicked Strong Family mask on his friend. And for FallFest, we launched Wicked Strong Family Kids t-shirts. These are all proceeds are going to our emergency assistance fund, which helps for non-medical needs like rent, grocery bills, mortgages, and they are referred in by their hemophilia treatment centers. As I mentioned, the fitness challenge, our new website, which you have here, which I'll get into, and the new logo. A new scholarship that was launched, and I need to thank Jane Smith. This was her vision in memory of her father. I know that I never met her father, but I have learned so much, and I feel connected to her father, who had hemophilia and passed away. This is a photo from a newspaper clip of Jane and her family, where he went back to school at Northeastern and plowed through as a parent to get his education. So Jane's vision was to create a scholarship for adults returning back to school. So this year we awarded 2 scholarship winners, Jen, who is going to the Community College of Rhode Island, and you can see their photos down there, and Sonia, who's going to Ashworth College. Each received a $1,500 scholarship as adults returning back. So Jane, thank you for your vision. This will certainly continue. Washington Days, I mentioned, we usually do NHF and HFA travel scholarships. Obviously, there's no travel scholarships this year, but we usually offer that. And then $100 for a $100 for 100 miles program is if you attend an event and are in financial need, we can reimburse you up to 100 miles with no travel. That didn't happen. But what we did is we looked at all the gift cards, so the gift cards for food, the gift cards for consumer med that you can win, for the teen retreat, for other things. And there was over 230 gift cards that we gave back for these virtual programs. That was over $4,000 to help give you the experience, the Dunkin' Donuts gift cards, the ones to buy your pumpkins, which we're proud to do in lieu of the scholarships. Fundraisers, thank you everyone for participating. We started almost canceling our Bloody Mary competition, but we said, let's try it. And it was a success. You can see this is a person with a bleeding disorder, and they won the competition with a very elaborate Slim Jim hamburger, other stuff in here. And we had David Briggs, who is a journalist, a national journalist, MC the event, and he taught how to make a Bloody Mary. And we had a drag queen host it. It was really fun because I think that's what we need in our virtual space is fun and looking out. I want to thank the Bazinskis for working with a local bar where there was a Wicked Strong Family brew, and a portion of the proceeds went to support NEHA, the Falmouth Road Race. Thank you for those that ran a virtual Falmouth Road Race. The masks and t-shirts. Our virtual red tie silent auction is open now. There are so many amazing prizes and things, and thank you for those that got these items that will help to support our mission and our golf tournament and raffle. This was in the midst of happening last year. It's our second bleeding disorder corn maze. One didn't happen this year, but it was up in Sherman Farm in Conway, New Hampshire, and you can see this is a 12-acre corn maze with the map of New England, and it said Sherman Farm, and it says Wicked Strong Family here. And a portion of those proceeds went to support NEHA as well. All right, as we look at collaborations, we have a monthly social work call with the HTCs. Super important that we're connected to the HTCs. Healthcare providers are essential, but the HTCs are the glue. So we also did a needs assessment of the HTC social workers, and we learned a lot that's basing us on as we move forward. Our genetic counseling partnership. So Taylor is on here. It's our 4th year partnering with Boston University to have a graduate intern to get the nonprofit experience. And Taylor, you're doing an incredible job. It's actually Taylor's ending the internship this week. Actually, she ended it yesterday. So thank you for staying on. And she's been essential. And we've had a really great partnership with them. Our 3rd year doing another partnership with the genetic counseling program at Brandywine University. Lauren Fu have done this each year, and they educate genetic counselors who are in school about bleeding disorders. So Lauren Fu, thank you for doing it. They did it last week or the week before virtually. Beyond the Diagnosis is an traveling project where the first children with hemophilia was highlighted in this rare disease art exhibit. We have the Johansson family, which now lives out in Colorado. They're from Vermont, which are highlighting that. We work really closely with Save on Life. We are a partner of Save on Life for the bike ride this year. And we usually do a Giving Tuesday campaign for Save on Life. And in return, they support NEHA. The World Hemophilia Federation will be doing something special with them in November. Hole in the Wall Gang Camp. Tito's Vodka. I know it's random, but they do a lot to support our Bloody Mary events and our Red Tie Soiree. And yes, we have bottles, many of them, in the office, and I promise I'm not drinking them during the day, or I'm drinking them right now. And of course, our friends at the Hemophilia Alliance of Maine and the Connecticut Hemophilia Society. And this is the Weed family from Rhode Island who received their award for Family Camp. This is something super important that NEHA and NEBDEC was proud to start this year. So this is the Patient for Prescription Access Coalition. I'm not going to look at it all, but this is something, an initiative that we started. So NEHA is the driving force with all of these other organizations. We have a bi-weekly call, and what we're focusing on, it's Massachusetts specific, about the prescription drug coupon sunset provision. So I want to thank Ziva Mann and Kate Bazinski as our Massachusetts state leads that really have helped with this. But Massachusetts is the only state in the country where there's a sunset provision where it ends after 4 years. And essentially, if it didn't get approved, you would not be able, if you're a Massachusetts resident, be able to use the manufacturer co-payment assistance program. So there was a study that was done. And really right now we're working through this coalition to get it extended. It passed the Senate. It has not passed the House, but this coalition with all these other groups throughout New England is dedicated to. And this is a little timeline that you'll hear more about during the NEBDAC meeting tomorrow. This is what the coalition looks like. NEHA is the fiscal agent that kind of runs it. Then we have our friends, I don't know which way I'm pointing here, so I'll just do this. The Connecticut Hemophilia Society and the Hemophilia Alliance of Maine. Then we have the state leads. So each state has a state lead, volunteer state lead. And then the ambassadors, we kind of look at it like the Marines or the Army. You may not always be on duty, but when we need you, we're going to press the button and you know what to do. An action alert, calling your senator, doing an email. So that's the structure of it. And we love to hear NHF and HFA say this is a model for the rest of the country to really look at how a volunteer coalition works. Not going to go through all this, but this is a look at thank you to you. These awards are dedicated to you as the community, from everything of an excellence of advocacy and public policy. Thanks to your efforts, we were the Walk Chapter of the Year and Advocate of the Year. We have this year, that's supposed to say NHF. I think we combined NHF and HFA together. So it's a new acronym, the John Indents Red Tie Award. And then, so I just want to thank you all because these are dedicated to you. This is our new cover of the newsletter, which you'll be getting next week. And this year, and I just realized resource page is spelled wrong. So sorry for the typos. It makes us human here. So we launched a COVID resource page, which we update all the time. Emails, we sent out a voting resource this year, monthly NEBDAC e-newsletters with a lot of it. Advocacy updates, increase emails, our newsletters. We try to do postcards, a new website platform, and our logo. So this is our logo. Big shout out to Jordan Bazinski for connecting us with this company firm in New York. So you can see our old logo based on community feedback. We completely redid it. And this is our new logo, which is fresh, it's invigorating. And these are things that were in the Goose Chase mission. So the kids during camp made their logo, made our logo into things that they found around their house. But I just want to take a minute to explain the logo. So if you look at it, it's a more dynamic symbol, and it's also the red and white almost as embraces each other like a hug, which speaks to the Wicked Strong family. So this firm that did in New York, 100% volunteer pro bono, saved NEHA. This is a big firm. About $40,000 is what they would have charged. Cost us $0 to redo this. So we are so grateful that Jordan put us in touch with this firm, and they become a great partner of NEHA as well. I'm just going to go through some stats. There's a lot of numbers here, but I think if we don't have data, we have no idea what we're doing. So this is social media followers. So these are followers on social media. So you can see that we continue to increase our followers, but I don't look at followers as appointment, as appointment as engagement. Followers is like, I'll pat you on the back and, I'll follow you around. Engagement is people interacting with posts, sharing posts. So you can see the reach. When you share things, it reaches to your network, which reaches to your network. And on average, we're looking at about per month, per year on average per month is about 25,000, which is reaching over social media platforms here. This is just a look at some of the news that we were in 2020. So we have everything from, we did a push-up-a-thon right when everything shut down here in Rhode Island on a Saturday, and we did it on the Saturday. No idea what it was going to look like, but it was a push-up-a-thon through a mastery martial arts, and we see the Weed family highlighted in a local paper, the Pushing Forward. Our Bloody Mary event was featured in the Beverage Journal of Connecticut and Rhode Island, and in this national magazine about how we transitioned an in-person event. It breaks my heart. Some of these bars in Providence went out of business. They no longer exist that used to compete in the competition. This is the Corn Maze. We have several articles about advocacy that were also op-ed, letter to the editor, etc. Attendance. This is super important. FallFest attendance. It's great to see this, that although we're in a virtual space, the attendance did go down a little bit this year, but you could see the breakdown of consumers versus industry versus new family. So if you're on here listening, welcome to our Wicked Strong family. You've never attended a NEHA event before, and this is your first event. But we're really excited to see that it didn't decrease drastically, but it did decrease, which we expected it would, but not by much. So let's break that down even more because we love data. So this is by state. This is everyone. Massachusetts always is higher, but we're really excited to see that per state, Connecticut is next. And then we can see Rhode Island, Vermont, New Hampshire, and then outside of New England. These are just demographics. So let's go even deeper. Adults, 13 to 18-year-olds, 6 and 12, and 5 and under. These are those that are on here that have registered. And we know not everyone's going to come to the live programs, but they may participate in Goose Chase. It's an all-encompassing look at the demographics. So how do we do it? It's a pretty small staff. So I'm now going to take you through a financial update and an income and expenses, the value of membership, and our needs assessment, which Nancy will do. And this is a picture from the Fisher family from Connecticut, who was at family camp last year. Revenue. You can see a pretty big jump in revenue. So revenue is what comes into NEHA. So we were pretty stagnant for really it goes back. We were less than $500,000. And in 2017, we had a huge jump. And this is because of the walk. Our walk was completely rethought, and many of the team captains here is really, and I'll get into a pie chart of where the money comes from, but we jumped up incredibly. And I just want to show you that this is actually an audited number now. So we went through an audit, so it's final that in fiscal year 2019, we hit $1.1 million, which is absolutely incredible to think of this organization if you look at where we were. This year, it is a little bit lower so far, which we knew was to be expected, but NEHA has done an incredible job with this community to make sure that we're fiscally sound and that we're being responsible. So it is normal and it is expected that a nonprofit should have 6 months to a year of revenue. And that's something that our walk has really worked hard for. So let me go into a little bit. This is what comes in. This is based on the audited numbers. As you can see, 37% of our operating budget comes from the walk. I mean, the walk is an incredible thing. 35% comes into programs, and then you can see the rest: advertising, grants, membership, memorial. So this is money that comes in. I'll get to a second of money that is coming out, but you can see our walk, which is the most people and the most revenue that comes in the country for all walks. So that's because of your efforts. And let's break the walk down even more. You can see that the walk last year hit 460, which was unprecedented for any walk in the country. This year it hit 283, which, when the pandemic started, we didn't really know what the goal would be, but we knew we were not going to hit what we did last year. We're still blown away and completely grateful that we were able to hit $283,000. So you may say, okay, Rich, 283, what does that really mean? I'm glad you asked. So let's look at this. This is a breakdown of industry, so our pharmaceutical and specialty pharmacy partners versus individuals and local businesses. And this is something I think is really important, because if you look back at 2015, 2016, we were almost even with our sponsorship and our individuals. Look what happened in 2017 and above. I am beyond blown away, and I almost get a little tickled when I say this, because this number is unheard of. Less than 25% of what came in this year through a virtual space was our industry partners, pharmaceutical and specialty pharmacy. The rest, 216,000, was you and local businesses. This is not the case with any other walk in the country. And I want to say how important this is, because this is going to allow NEHA to be sustainable for the future, because we know things are changing. So I just want to give everyone a round of applause, because if you're a walk team captain, this would not be possible without you. I'm going to go through industry versus non-industry a little bit more. Our membership is 100% you led. So over $30,000 is based on membership. Our Bloody Mary, 0% comes from industry, 0% comes from industry from membership. Our golf, and this is something where it's fluctuated over the year. Industry, which we can understand, is pulling back from golf, but we're really excited that the individual support and local businesses are still above. And of course, we have our walk that's right here. And these numbers are, again, based on 2019, because those are audited. Breakdown of expenses. So this is what comes out of the organization. These are based on audited numbers. So of what comes in, 58% of what we spend goes to education. So again, our mission is education, support, and advocacy. So 58% of what we spend goes to education, 10% goes to support, and 13% goes to advocacy. And you can see the rest for fundraising, administrative, and other. So again, thank you for what you do, because everything that we do, we try really hard to go back to our mission and say, what is the needs of the community? And are we looking at making sure that we're listening and then giving back as well? This is huge based on 2019. So when we look at the overall, what's non-industry and industry, 48% of what, this actually should say revenue of what comes in. So sorry about that. 48% of what comes in is non-industry, 52% is industry. I can say from other chapters, this in our national organizations, this pie chart looks very different. So this is something that you may say, what's the difference? What's the difference is I go back to sustainability of individual support will carry nonprofits going forward. Membership makes a difference. So you may say, what is a member of NEHA? We don't look at our database and say we have 2,000 people. I mean, when I look at our database, it's well over 10,000 when we look at all donors. Membership is you are actively involved every year. So that's you're taking a step to become a member. It's not even about the dollars, and there's different membership levels. It's about the investment. If someone reaches out to us and says that they need a membership scholarship, we give it to them right away, but they become a member. We have donors that are specific scholarship members. So we can see that our membership revenue has increased, and we can see the households. They did go down a little bit this year, and I believe that's because we didn't charge a fee for family camp. And usually that's where most people make that membership. So if we're continuing to go virtual, we're going to rethink membership to make sure we're not losing any members. And I shouldn't say losing, because they're still involved. They just didn't take that step to become a member, but it wasn't a big decrease. But I will say, look at the average membership total. That means that the average membership total has increased each year. So this is something that we launched. It's a Charles Doherty Giving Circle. It's membership based. And I want to thank everyone who's a scholarship winner, to a family membership, to a bronze membership, which is 100 or more, or a silver. And actually silver should say 250, gold, and then platinum. Thank you to all of these individuals who have donated. When the membership comes out again, I just want to make clear that the Giving Circle, I know that there's been some questions, is membership based. Value of membership. I know some of this is based on when we are in person. And I just wanted to kind of put this in here because I think it's important. When you're a member, whether you're a scholarship or not, you have access for Washington Day scholarships, the NHF annual meeting, and HFA. There's free registration to almost every event versus $10. And really, we want to get people to become members. Discount for family camp if you're a member. You actually get a discount at the Bloody Mary event, the Red Tie Soiree. Early registration for certain events, the $100 for 100 miles financial assistance program, the Charles Doherty Giving Circle. This year we did a free NEHA t-shirt. Last year we did a mug, and this year stay tuned because we have a surprise. And then of course, investment in your community, that we can say that there was over nearly 250 households, which equals about 1,400 people with those that are in your family. So with that said, I'm going to pause, and I'm going to now turn it over to a colleague and a friend and a leader, Nancy Messina, and then we'll get to questions at the end of this. So Nancy, let me Sarah, if you could spotlight Nancy, and then I'll pull my screen. And Nancy, you could just say next slide, and I will turn over from there.
Okay, no need to highlight me, although I did decide to join you up at Geneva Point Ridge. I figured
nice. I like that. Thank you.
We should be in the same place, even though we're not at J Peak this year. But thank you. That was, I think I speak for everyone that it's amazing. I mean, blows me away. And I know that you and the staff have worked so hard that all of those recognitions and awards, they're all mostly in part to all of your hard work and the community. But you're our fearless leader, and you're a hard act to follow public speaking wise. So bear with me. I'm not great at this, but I'm so happy to see all these faces though. And I hope you guys all enjoyed the all the different sponsored information sessions. I thought ours was really interesting. So the needs assessment survey, it was pre-COVID, it was last fall, and we were hopeful to get feedback. We always want feedback. Rich and I were talking yesterday about how, we've had a lot of success over the last few years, but we're not perfect. And we always are open to suggestions for improvement and transparent. And we want your feedback. So we really appreciated that last fall, 131 people took the needs assessment survey that we sent out. And we had people from every demographic, from patients to caregivers, healthcare providers, pharmaceutical, and we got a lot of feedback, and we got a lot of open responses. So I am not going to be able to share all of it today because it was 30 pages. But before I go through the few slides that I'm going to do, just know that if you would like to see the full copy, I'm happy to send it to you. The board has an email address that we'll post at the end. So if you'd like to read all the open responses, go for it. But this is just kind of a 10,000 foot view at what kind of the highlights of what we got from it. So next slide, Rich. Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay, there you go. So there were about 6 sections that were part of the needs assessment overview, and the leadership was one of the sections, and I think the feedback was really positive. 89% of everyone who answered said they were welcomed at events, and 59% of the respondents have attended 4 or more NEHA events per year, and that's a good attendance. So 89% felt that NEHA fulfills its mission to provide support, education, and advocacy. And so I thought the general feedback on that was great. Thanks to our fearless leader, Rich, again. Communication. I was surprised. The question where we asked, should NEHA go paperless? 60% of the people said no, and that they valued the newsletter that was read on some of the paper stuff that we send out, and especially the 87% read and value the newsletter, which, by the way, I believe is in the mail, and look in your mailbox next week. We should be getting that newest newsletter, right? And 96% felt that NEHA communicates effectively, and we should continue that paper. Not completely paper, but some paper. So that was interesting. And most said they wouldn't communicate, wouldn't change anything about the way we communicate. And I'd like to call out Brandon Green. I think that's really been helpful to the organization to have somebody part-time help with all that communication. So thank you. Next slide. There was a whole section on new families, and there was a percentage of the respondents that were new families. And we were also blown away. 100% said they would recommend NEHA to another newly diagnosed family. So great feedback. Most families, there were a lot of questions about how far are you willing to travel for a 1-day event, a 2-day event, but generally most new families were willing to travel up to 50 miles for a new family event, which makes sense. And over 40% felt the most important topic to them was managing the psychosocial impacts of having a bleeding disorder. So that was good to know. They had a lot of other suggestions too. So that was really helpful to hear from them. Programs and services. There were a lot of questions about that, and it came out in the wash that the most important programming topics for these respondents were in this order: advocacy, emerging therapies, insurance issues, social, emotional, and mental health. And there were lots of suggestions for new programming. And I talk about that again at the end, but they were really helpful, great ideas. And 83% agreed that they make community connections at NEHA events. So hopefully we'll be going back to in-person events, but in the meantime, I hope you guys are all finding the virtual, this original creative content that our staff has created. I hope you're finding it useful in many ways. And then finally, the distance is the most common obstacle to attendance, and many were requesting more local events. And I'll talk about that as one of our takeaways at the end as well. So next slide. Mental health. There were many open response comments and suggestions about the way we could go forward addressing mental health concerns. 42% reported having a lot or some mental health struggles. And I'm sure that this was pre-COVID. So I can only imagine that post-COVID or during COVID, we're still in the middle of this, that there's issues with that. So we will be looking to increase that programming. Collaboration and partnerships. There were many comments, suggestions, and lots of questions about the redundancy of having 3 chapters in New England. 79% were aware of NEBDAC successes, so that's great, and they feel that NEBDAC does an excellent or good job at providing education about legislative advocacy. 70% participated in some form of that. 24% have actually gone to the National Hemophilia Foundation's Washington Days, and I'd highly recommend that. We've gone many years. It's a great program. 89% strongly agree that industry reps are clearly identified when they exhibit and speak. And this is a really important thing. We want to make sure that newcomers and people who don't really understand the world of bleeding disorders understands everyone's role clearly. 77% felt that NEHA does an excellent or good job providing connections to the pharmaceutical industry reps, which is also a really important thing. So we felt that those numbers were pretty good, but there's always room for improvement. So we took all the open responses, and we'll go to the next slide. So here, the opportunities for improvement. There's always the issue with attendance. We have a large geographic area, 6 states. You can drive 8.5 hours, I think, from one end to the other. But then we have this thing called the pandemic and all this virtual world that we're all getting used to, and we're getting better at it. So in a way, that's a big positive. And I think there'll be a big takeaway where we will do a lot more investment in technology going forward when we emerge out of COVID and start to go back to in-person events. We're hoping to take a more hybrid approach to our events and maybe have a few of the keynotes and some of the important programs and educational sessions on Zoom. So people who aren't able to attend the event in person will be able to still get that content. So I think that, but we asked this question pre-COVID, but now I think COVID will kind of push us in that direction. And then there was a lot of comments about a desire for more local programming where people can connect. And that has always been a comment that's important for everyone. And I remembered back to the days, we used to do like things like women's teas and such. So with Sarah coming on board in March, I think after FallFest, we'll be able to take a deep breath, and we're going to start to look at some ways where we could do a model of community-driven events. So we're going to look at ways we could have, a few templates for people that could host an event like a women's tea or a play date with kids or something, where NEHA could provide the format and the direction for that, so that we could kind of encourage more volunteerism and people to help us initiate those more local events. There were 60 some comments about the confusion over our partnerships with CHS and HAM. And I think that stems from, there's a history there. There's been, it's kind of, CHS and HAM formed about 10 years ago in a need for more local programming. Again, the desire for more local programming. But I think it's 10 years later, we have a whole new staff and a whole new structure. We have a lot more staff. So I feel like NEHA is stronger than ever. So we are still continuing. We work closely in collaboration with CHS and HAM. So we're going to do our best to increase that collaboration, and we're open to talks with them. There were a lot of comments about merging, and if anyone wants to read them all, they're welcome to, but we're going to be working to work with them on more collaboration and going forward. So the priority to expand relationships with the HTCs and providers. Rich mentioned that we did an HTC survey, and we got a lot of great feedback, but that was actually the #1 area of expansion that was suggested by the needs survey. We do monthly calls and have greatly increased the lines of communication, but we're always looking to do more. And then finally, there were a lot of specific comments about expanding specific issues, particularly mental health, the issues of aging, people with bleeding disorders, and siblings is a big one. I know we do a lot with siblings at camp, but maybe an expansion of sibling programs outside of camp. And then the issues of women and girls with bleeding disorders. So those were kind of the big takeaways, but there were a lot of comments, and the board has been reviewing all of them. And I know Rich is always thinking of ways to improve. So we want to thank you for your feedback. And we're also going to be doing, just to mention, if you didn't see the Meet the Board webinar on Wednesday, the board is currently working on a strategic plan, a 3 to 5 year strategic plan. So all this information will be really helpful for us to help with develop that plan. So I think that's it. Rich, did I miss anything?
No, I think that is it there. I just want to go back to that the comments that were in that needs assessment were based on your results. So I think any organization or nonprofit that asks is based on what Nancy had shared. So, I just want to emphasize, if you want to read them all, you can have them because this is our community, and this is based on your feedback as we move forward. But, I go to this photo, and it's one of my favorites of a family that came to the walk last year. But NEHA's mission in all 6 states, Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, Massachusetts, Connecticut, and Rhode Island, is dedicated to assist individuals and family with a bleeding disorder through education, support, and advocacy. And that's what this comes down to. For 6 decades, NEHA has not changed. We've evolved. We will continue to serve. As treatments advance, our priorities will continue to evolve with the new treatments, but NEHA is not going to go away. I look at families like the Wagners and Liam. He's going to grow up in a time when treatment will be much better than Jane Smith's father, or even when I was growing up. But that doesn't mean that he won't have hemophilia, even with some of these treatments, or when he has kids passing down that hemophilia trait. But what I can promise you, NEHA will be here, whether it's in 10 years or 20 years or 50 years. This organization is not going anywhere and will continue to serve families. So I think with that said, please put questions in the chat. This is your organization, and we want to answer whatever it is that you have questions for. And if we don't have it, we're not going to make them up. We'll go find them for you and do some research. But please, we want to be as transparent and open as possible, and we will ask whatever we can. Answer or ask. But thank you guys for sticking with us through this annual meeting.
Awesome. Thanks, Rich. I know there are a couple questions that came in, and I will just also mention that if anybody wants to ask a question but would prefer for it to be private, please feel free to send me, Sarah Shinkman, a question privately through the chat, and I'd be happy to share that. There were a couple questions that I know there were some answers to, but for the sake of broadcasting to all, someone asked, when will membership open for 2021?
Great question. So we usually launch membership at FallFest because it's our largest educational event of the year, and it's just easier to do it in person. But really, it's open now. Any membership that comes in after October 1st, we allocate to the following year. So you can go on our website, and maybe Brandon or Gabby could post it, but in the chat. But the official launch of membership, they'll be getting something in the mail, and we'll do emails, etc. We'll launch probably in between Thanksgiving and early December is when the launch happens, but really you could do it now, and we allocate that to 2021. And then, Gabby, if it's okay, I'll share the item, and hopefully I'm not jumping on the development committee, but the item for this year, if you do $100 or more, is going to be a cool NEHA hat. So we're really this is based on feedback. We wanted gear, we wanted bling, we wanted to, just no tattoos. We can't do that, especially a real one. But we're going to have a NEHA hat that is coming out for those with $100 or more membership.
Great, thank you, Rich. The next question: did the survey capture how many respondents were parents, caregivers of affected children versus adult patients?
It did. I just don't have the information right here. There's so much. I can look and get back to you on that. And again, if anyone wants a copy of it, it's 30 pages, but I can send you a PDF if you want to read it. I don't have that stat off the top of my head. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No problem, Nancy.
It was a wide variety of people who answered, though. We noticed that. So I think it was a balanced response.
And we can run the data, even though it's been scrubbed, for lack of better terms, we can run the data with an Excel spreadsheet of looking at people that answered by state. If you want all the data from Maine versus caregivers versus adults versus healthcare providers. So that's something that even if it's not in the scrub document, it's something with the raw document, we can kind of just organize a little bit differently if you're interested in looking at that.
Great, thank you. As somebody who loves data myself, I love looking at those kind of things. And during the pandemic, what a better time to do it while you're watching Netflix. So a couple other questions. Someone asked about the silent auction that's happening right now. When will it close? And I know there was a link to it in the chat, but any other information you can share?
Yeah. So in the program and in some other things, we had the exhibit hall and the silent auction and the Wicked Strong kids t-shirts. They were closing on different dates. What we decided to do is just everything will close together on November 14th, which is the VWD retreat. So there's 2 weeks open for the silent auction. We'll be sending a massive email out to everyone. The Wicked Strong, actually, the Wicked Strong Kids and the exhibit hall will all close on the same day there. I believe, Sarah, Goose Chase is the only one that's open to Halloween, correct?
That's correct. Goose Chase will close on the 31st, 7 p.m.
Yep. And items, if you're close to the office, you can pick them up. We can send them to you. I'm just blown away at the amount of items. There's JetBlue tickets, there's hotels, there is, gift certificates. There's a table that was handmade by a community member that's actually beautiful. And he said he'll deliver it. So please look at it, share with your family and friends. They do not need to be, having a bleeding disorder from the community. It's a really great, robust silent auction. And thank you to the development committee for those that had items for silent auction that you were going to do this year that are now on there as well. I wish that we were at Mechanics Hall in Worcester. It would have been November 14th, but we will be there hopefully next year on November 6th. With the contract is signed, I'm hopeful we can get dressed up and go, but if not, we'll look at 2022. but fingers crossed, if you can pencil in November 6th now. At beautiful Mechanics Hall. If you haven't been there, you'll be blown away at how stunning it is.
Great, thanks, Rich. Another question, has the board given any thought to helping Vermont organize? This is important in light of the fact that the state has one of the oldest reps. Would you mind sharing more about Vermont, please?
Yeah, Nancy, I could take a stab at that, but maybe you can go. So I think Karen, state rep, is that I know Mike was on the board of directors prior, but you better not be calling him old. You better not.
Just quick clarification, and I'm sorry, she had written clarification here. I was trying to read it quickly. State rep, oldest person in Vermont with hemophilia.
Yes. Well, love goes out to Mike, and we're certainly not calling anyone old here. But I think you bring up a great point. As much as NEHA gets accolades, we're not doing everything perfectly, nor do we want to pretend like we're doing everything perfectly. There is always an opportunity to grow, for personally, professionally, no matter what you're doing. And I think that there are areas in New England where we could be doing a better job of making sure that there's programs being offered. One of the things is we wanted to make sure that these larger events did rotate through Vermont. So we were in there 2016, we were in Burlington. 2020, we were coming back up to Jay Peak. But FallFest, while it's a great educational event, it's not enough. So we're working closely with the treatment center. They did say that they were sending out 75 postcards for FallFest to all the patients in New York and Vermont. I'm gonna fingers crossed that they did. We had a meeting scheduled with the UVM treatment center to kind of brainstorm what we can do up in Vermont, and make sure that the needs are being met. We did do a couple of dinners with our industry partners up in Vermont as well, but we know this is an area that we could be doing some things that are different. Rural New England is very different than urban New England. The Boston, Providence, Hartford, Manchester area is very different than Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont, and there's different needs. So it's something that we actively are listening to, and we want your feedback as to how we navigate to make sure everyone's being served with our, small staff, but dedicated to make sure that we can. Nancy, I'll turn it over to you.
Well, I agree. We would love any feedback on that. And I do think the outreach to the HTC is a really important way to make sure that we expand our find all the people that are there. As far as programming, I really do. I'm really hopeful about the world of virtual organizational, offerings. And as a board, we're also going to be investing in technology so that we can have board members that are from all over the region. We've typically been kind of heavy on the Massachusetts people because that's where our headquarters is and where the 501c3 is. But now we are going to invest in technology so that we can have board members from all over the region. And we would love to get one from every state if possible. So it's, I think this expansion into the virtual world is going to benefit that. But again, any other opportunities, any other ideas you may have to organize Vermont would be welcome.
And I think, I'll give you an example of the ways that we're working specifically with the HTCs. As Nancy said, the healthcare providers are key to finding new patients. Many of you were referred in by your treatment centers when you contact us. So I think this is important to explain. When a new family reaches out, and I'm going to start with the new families first. When the new families reach out, they go through our First Connections program. And we try really hard, and some of you received phone calls. We try within 24 to 48 hours to send an email, give you a phone call, because we know that's a vulnerable time and you're reaching out for help. Once you reach out, we've worked hard with a group of moms in particular, but we do have dads too, that will ask, would you like to be connected? And if you are connected, these amazing individuals that are walk team captains and have invested in NEHA will contact you and give you the rundown. We can talk all we want and explain NEHA, but it's clear that's the support that's needed there. So it really does start, if we don't have a strong relationship with healthcare providers, we're not going back to our foundation. Have people found NEHA by searching the web? Of course, but the healthcare providers are key. That's number one. Number two, we launched this year, based on your feedback, a medical ID program. So we worked with the Yale Hemophilia Treatment Center and brainstormed of what it looks like. So we worked with a company called American Medical ID. So Medic Alert, MEDIC Alert, is a company. They often get confused. It's like the Kleenex versus tissue. They often get confused that every medical ID is a Medic Alert. That's not true. Medical IDs are medical IDs. Medic Alert is one of them. American Medical ID is another type of medical ID. So we beta tested with the Yale Hemophilia Treatment Center and worked behind the scenes that any patient, so if you're out there and wondering, I need a medical ID, you contact your healthcare provider. And if your healthcare provider is not a treatment center, they could reach out to us. We don't see personal information. You work directly with your treatment center. Then they send a form to American Medical ID. We have an account set up where we put funds in, and then you get it shipped right away. The Yale Hemophilia Treatment Center loves the program. They have ordered over 10 at this point, and we just got Mass General, UConn, and Rhode Island Hospital that are now working as well. So I think going back to the new, but this is not just new families. If you're an adult and you need one too, we don't want you to have to bear that burden of the cost. I know several of you have gotten them on your own. You can also, through this program, submit for reimbursement, but we want to make sure that this is key. And I think those relationships with the treatment centers are going to be key. We try to be extremely transparent and work with them as a collaborator as well. But I do think that, going back to the earlier question, we want your feedback. We definitely want your feedback. So I see this other, what is the different, great question. A little bit of semantics, right? I mean, so an ID and alert, it's ultimately the same thing. Some people call it a medical alert. Medic Alert is a company, and I think that's where it gets confusing, because I even was like, oh, I need a medic alert, but you need a medical ID. But there are other forms. You can have an ID in your wallet. You can have an ID, you can have a necklace, you can have a bracelet. EMTs are trained to look for something. I believe the stat is 95% of EMTs should look for something on wrist. And the American Medical ID program does have the same thing as Medical Alert, where there's a 24-hour number line with more medical information. And we cover the membership fee as well in addition to that. So hopefully that answered your question there. But you can certainly work with the treatment center and get one as well.
Rich, another question here about medical ID. Does a medical ID need to be updated over time? I've had the same necklace since grade school.
Great question. The answer is yes. So that's why Medic Alert or American Medical ID has yearly membership fees, because it forces you, just like your annual clinical visit, or your PCP, where you get weighed and your cholesterol gets checked and all that. It's kind of like a reset. So the membership fee for a Medic Alert or a Medical ID or any of these, they do well, in a best case scenario, you are required, or best practice, to just update it. So we know as we get older, you have other things going on, maybe, another diagnosis, and that's something that we're seeing. In addition, as treatments are getting better, people are living healthier lives. So that means things, unfortunately, like there's people with bleeding disorders now with diabetes and cancer and other natural things, blood clots, things that we never really had, heart attacks. What happens if you go on a blood thinner and you have a bleeding disorder? The average life expectancy for someone with hemophilia back before clotting factor was 26 years old. So we've come a long way. It's normal today. So I think I would encourage you. I'm not a healthcare provider, but I am a patient living with hemophilia. I would encourage you to make sure that that's updated through the system, and that you have the medicines that you're on through this program, you have the correct diagnosis, and you have everything that you're at least updating once a year.
Great, and I did see one other question that came through before that. Is one service more advantageous, referring to medical ID versus the other option?
Great question. It's like, do you like Bounty or do you like the Stop and Shop version of paper towel? I personally like Bounty. There is a difference, but I don't think, they both have a membership fee and a 24-hour number. This company in particular has really great things for kids. If you have a child with a small wrist, they have the Velcro ones. But I don't think so. Feel free to try American Medical ID and see the form. And again, you can get that through your treatment center. But I don't think so. But you can try it and maybe give us feedback as well.
Great. And I did see there was another question about getting more information and signing up for the medical ID program.
You got it. So the best way to do it is contact your healthcare provider. If you don't have a healthcare provider that's at an HTC, send us an email and we'll give you the form. We just ask that it goes through a healthcare provider, and I'll give you the reason why. The healthcare provider can work with you to make sure that the information is on there is something that they recommend. So I think that that's something that's super, super important, is that you work with your healthcare provider and make sure. Like, I know when I got mine, I didn't know what to put because it's limited characters. So I called my HTC. They gave me a recommendation. I love putting ICE in case of emergency. Mine always had my parents' number. I'm now married. I hope my mom doesn't get a phone call in the middle of the night. But I think that these certain things are things that you should just update there. But yeah, road ID too. I see that. I actually, all of these things are very similar. Road ID, American Medical ID. Many of them are transitioning into, just don't get one super fancy. Like I've seen some for women that look like a Tiffany's, jewelry there. But I think EMTs, and I know there's some that are on here, if it looks too much like jewelry, it may get confusing there.
Great, and see Emily posted something that I think is worth mentioning live. Please also consider updating the medical ID info in your smartphone. When the necklace info doesn't replace, while the necklace info doesn't replace your ID bracelet, it increases the chances you'll get the help you need. Great suggestion, Emily. Thank you for mentioning that.
Great. Any other questions,
Awesome.
Sarah?
Those are all of the questions that I see. Thank you all for your comments and feedback. It's been so nice the evolution of using the chat feature in Zoom over these last several months. It's so great that we can still have that dialogue while additional conversation is happening. So thank you all for using that. This has been great, and lots of good programming ideas too that is also coming out of this session. So I certainly appreciate that.
Great. Awesome. Well, we'll give it another second or so, but if there's nothing else, we will transition. I know we went a little bit over, but this is really important. You know, I mean, I think that as we navigate the future, always know that your feedback will be taken seriously. If you have comments, questions, concerns, thoughts, want to tell a joke, sing in Telegram, we are always open to listening and the feedback. And also for our industry partners on here, I hope you know that we value you and we want your feedback too. You know, we've been hosting bi-weekly industry calls since I believe April as an opportunity to grow together, because we need to navigate the future in New England together. And that's all our stakeholders, HAM, CHS, industry partners, our HGCs and US community members. So thank you all for, for doing that. Awesome.
Rich.
Great. So we're going to talk a little bit about what's happening tomorrow. So tomorrow we will start again at 9 a.m. We're trying to keep these things short because we don't want you to sit in front of a computer the entire day. So 9 a.m. we'll start with 3 breakouts. The breakouts, Sarah, do you have them in front of you?
Oh, yes, the breakouts planned for tomorrow?
Yes.
Yes, so we have women and bleeding disorders as one of our breakouts. We have how to be prepared in a bleeding disorders emergency. And our third breakout is on pain matters around pain management.
Great, awesome. And then from there, this is a popular thing at FallFest, rap sessions. So our rap sessions have really been going on as chats. So we use the terms from HFA: blood brotherhood, moms in action, blood sisterhood, dads in action, and then new families. And then we have a partners one. So this is all based on feedback. Everyone will go into a breakout room. So really breakout room extravaganza tomorrow. There's a lot happening. You'll go into a breakout room and it's a safe space to talk. We asked our industry partners that are not affected with a bleeding disorder to either log off and then come back on. And if you are an industry partner and have a bleeding disorder, we try to be extremely transparent, and the moderator will just have you announce the company that you're from, because that's really important just to make sure. But this is a safe space for everyone. Following that, advocacy is part of our mission. So we're going to do a NEBDAX update. The National Hemophilia Foundation and HFA will be given a presentation, followed by Joe Zamboni, who will give a NEBDAC. And then we're going to try something also. You're going to break out into states. So Maine will go together, Vermont, Rhode Island, Connecticut, and we do invite our industry partners to participate in that. I think it's really important that you can go to this and hear what the state's doing. And it's really meant to just have a conversation, talk about the ambassador program, and get to know those in your state. And then we'll wrap up, and then it doesn't end. The Goose Chase, it's been really cool to see some of the families participating in Goose Chase and the creativity, the silent auction, the exhibit hall. The answers to the trivia questions are in the exhibit hall, so please look at that. Followed by the Wicked Strong Kids t-shirts and many other things. But I want to give a plug to the VWD retreat. If you haven't registered for that, even if you don't have VWD and you want to come, please come. It's only 2.5 hours and it's going to be a great session. Sarah, did I miss anything?
No, Rich, I think you covered it all. And I know Brandon had previously put the VWD retreat sign up in the chat. So we'll make sure. Oh, looks like you just put it in there again. That's Brandon is so up on the communication. So thank you, Brandon. I'll just make a couple notes here from yesterday. One is if you haven't already opened the NEHA coffee mug that came in your FallFest at home package. Oh, thank you, Nick, for demonstrating. Hope that's a nice cup of coffee in there, or the beverage of your choice. But I would just note that please open it to find a Dunkin' Donuts gift card, or I guess it's now Dunkin', in your mug. We don't want anyone to put that through the dishwasher before it gets used effectively. So please make sure that you open it if you haven't already. I feel like a broken record in saying this, but just as the person on the back end of the breakout rooms, please do us a favor and if you could help download the latest version of Zoom. If you haven't already, it's the Zoom 5.32. We've been posting it throughout the chat. It's the first option when you log in. As we found this morning, I think the breakouts generally ran pretty smoothly. At least I hope you feel that way, getting people into them. Tomorrow, it'll be really helpful if as many people have that downloaded as possible to just be able to go in, because we've got 3 different rounds of breakout rooms. And if you have the ability to select on your own, that certainly allows us to be able to be able to push people in there more quickly instead of having to manually assign. So I just ask that you please do that. And a big thanks to all who submitted their choices for the sessions in advance. I'm also able to go through and assign you. So that's been a really helpful thing. And Rich, aside from that, I think that those are all the big ones.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to share?
Because this was a hot topic, I'm just going to show this really quick. I can't put it in the chat, but this is the form that the HTCs have. If you want the form and you are not with an HTC, send info, Brandon, if you could put this in the chat, info@anyhemophilia.org or info@newenglandhemophilia.org. We will send you this form and you could take it to your hemophilia treatment centers. So these are all things, there's no cost to you. You can see that it looks very similar. Your HTC will work with you to check which one you need. Here are the kids. There's a dolphin, a flower, a dinosaur. And it looks like Captain America. Maybe it's not, but it looks like that. Here's some necklaces. Here's some cards. So it's pretty robust, but the HTCs have this, but if you're interested in getting it so you could take it to your HTC, just send us an email, info@anyhemophilia.org. I'll share a quick story with that. Our friends in Nebraska are not happy with us because anyhemophilia.org was not taken, but Nebraska was going to take it. And I'm sorry, they were late to the game. So we shortened it. And now we have anyhemophilia.org and info@anyhemophilia. But they always give us a hard time. That's like, you stole our domain. I'm like, no, we're just borrowing it for a little bit. Awesome. I think that's it, Sarah.
Awesome. I was going to say,
there you go. You put it in.
Yep, I got that form in the chat. So we did include that in there as well. Awesome. Okay, excellent. And as a reminder, this is the annual meeting portion has been recorded. So we do have that. So we'll look forward to seeing what people do over the next few days in Goose Chase while we're not doing live programming, as well as seeing you in the exhibit booth. So thanks everyone for joining us today. Reach out if you have any questions, concerns, thoughts you want to share in the meantime. But we'll see you tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., same time, same place. And thank you all so much.
Thank you guys. Have a good day.
Bye-bye. Say bye-bye, Ray.
Thank you, DJ Michael, for taking us out again.
You want to dance?